Welcome to the Cookout. What's up, ladies? How y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Good. Good.
Good. I'm tired. Abraham left me with the kids, so
He left you with the kids?
yeah. Just oh, I got something to do in Dallas and left.
Dang. So how you doing live with all the kids? They ain't bothering you?
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
You don't
Give
want me
us
to
the
ask that on
juice.
live.
She doesn't beat the kids. They locked up somewhere.
My kids are trained, okay?
That's what I'm saying. Give us the juice. How you train your kids to not bother you while you working?
I just tell them don't come up in here. But I have a 12-year-old, so she helps with the baby, and then the 10-year-old helps with the other two.
Okay.
Okay.
I ain't saying they ain't gonna bother me. I'm just saying it should be minimal because yeah. I try. I mean, listen. I run a tight ship over here.
12 is old enough
Yeah.
to get certified as a babysitter.
Yeah.
And get paid for it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what didn't you have a question for us, Shug, to start with?
Yes. So a friend, and I don't know that she's on here yet, but her question was, how does she navigate how does she navigate being a Christian and dating? So she wants to live by the rules of Christianity, which is fine because that's her that's what she wants to do. But how does she navigate that in dating and mental health? Because obviously, I think that with being a Christian and dating and trying to follow, God's rules or whatever rules your religion calls for is probably hard when you really wanting something that the rest of the world don't want. So, for example, if you're trying to be abstinent, a lot of partners are like, we ain't doing that.
I mean, you come across a dilemma there, unfortunately. Unless you can find somebody who's on your same path, which might be very difficult, but possible. Unless you can find somebody on your same path and they trying to be abstinent or celibate until marriage, you might struggle. That's just, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I am perfectly cool with people following what they believe, but I like to tell people, make sure it is what you want and not just because somebody told you that, because you have different schools of thought now when it comes to the rules per se of dating as a Christian. You have different schools of thought for that, and not a lot of churches speak to their singles. They speak to married couples, but singles is lacking in a lot of churches, and they ignore that single people still are human beings with desires. So that's my issue.
I'm liking how you said find somebody with a like mind, and I do think that there are people out there with like minds. There are some people out there who will be like, oh, okay, you want to be celibate, or you actually looking for something serious, then let's do it. Or I love God too, so let's be of one body and one mind. There's people in their 60s that are ready, and they're tired of playing around and they want somebody spiritual. So it's definitely doable. I think secularly we think that it's not doable, but I think it is. I mean, I have friends getting married later on and they're finding their Boaz, right?
Ooh, I ain't even gonna go deep on that Boaz and Ruth story right now for the people, because a lot of people misinterpret that little story, but I'm not gonna go deep on that. I'm not gonna go deep on
that. Stay shallow, stay surface.
Stay shallow on that, because
I kind of want to hear it. Is it gonna stir up some stuff or what?
It will. Some people don't agree. So it probably will stir up some stuff depending on who's watching tonight. But the Ruth and Boaz story is often used to tell women, wait for this Boaz, but they miss so many elements of that story. Ruth wasn't passively waiting. For one, she went to find that man. She was working. She showed herself to him. Her mother-in-law Naomi made sure she was prepped and ready for him. And then there's a specific segment in there that says she uncovered his feet. Biblically, if you talk to scholars and theologians, uncovered your feet in the Bible means had sex. So you have some schools of thought that believe she slept with him before they were officially married. That's a controversial point, but it is schools of thought that follow that point.
I know that. School me.
Yeah, whenever the Bible says uncovered his feet, it is pertaining to sex.
Why don't they just say
they put
it?
the covers off?
Huh? What?
That means they pulled the covers off.
Yeah, they pulled them covers off and them panties down.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you have theologians who that's what they meant in the Hebrew and Aramaic languages when they said uncovered his feet.
Well, so is this question specifically referring to being celibate? Because I mean, if you have sex before marriage, does that mean you're not a Christian? Like,
no, but a part of Christian dating, when some people are looking and they're searching for somebody, that could be one of the rules is that they don't want to have sex before dating. Or they, they're looking for somebody spiritual. A lot of people say, I don't like God. You know what I mean? They're looking for somebody that's not saying that, or somebody that lives by a certain set of principles. So I think it's multifaceted. That's just usually the part that people hinge on because that's a big part. People don't do that.
Yeah.
That's the hardest part. I mean, you can date, like dating is dating, but when you say I'm going to be abstinent or celibate, that's the only thing that really would, I think, hinder anybody, especially depending on age. Like once you get up in age, you have grown adult people with desires and needs. And at the end of the day, intimacy and sex is a need, but there are other ways to be intimate. So find other ways to be intimate outside of having sex. And sometimes when you remove sex, you can build a stronger emotional connection first.
Intimacy.
Oh my God, no. Don't say that. Don't say that again.
Somehow I feel like this might be more of a problem for younger people, like the younger generations, than it would be for older people who are dating.
No, because older people want it. They're like, I done had kids. What do you mean I can't have sex?
Exactly. You find a young, like say you meet somebody at 17, 18. I mean, granted, you have boys out here who claiming that they know what they're doing and all of this stuff, but a lot of them are still virgins. There were boys that were still virgins as teenagers that didn't want to have sex. And it's easier because it's like there's no pressure on me. If I haven't had sex and you haven't had sex, there's no pressure here to have sex. But for an older person, like Shug said, I got kids. Or I've been in relationships and had sex, and now you want me to just cut that part out?
Yeah, you're going to uncover my feet.
Okay, let me clarify. I was talking about when you start a new relationship, right? Maybe you're not a virgin, but maybe when you start this relationship, you want to hold out until marriage for this particular relationship. And I know that's a little bit different than what the Bible says, but so for younger people, I'm saying I think that might be more of a problem than it would be for older people to do that. Because connecting on a spiritual level, that takes some maturity and like thinking deeper about life and everything. So
well, we do got some comments.
So you got a little bit of an echo. Now you don't, but you did. Hey, Jonte, let us know what you mean. Kind of elaborate. What's a problem with married couples also? I want you to elaborate a little bit before we.
And hold on, before you do elaborate, Lamika Abraham does need a babysitter.
Well, Abraham got a village. Remember, you said they had a whole meal train for Abe when you was gone.
I know. Yes. They did have a meal train.
So who helping you right now? Where your village?
Right.
They're not making me meals. I had to make meals.
Shame. Oh, intimacy. The intimacy part is a problem with married couples also. Wait, she talking about my Asa?
Yeah, but I don't remember what you're talking
with that old name in the Bible.
Oh. So let's look at this question or comment. Aren't single ministries designed to help you navigate those waters? Oh, it's from Elijah. What's up, Elijah? I didn't even see your name.
So I think is Elijah's question directly in relation to John Tay's, or is John Tay? Are you saying that it's intimacy is a problem with married couples? Okay, so let's answer hers first.
Yeah, Jonte is
Okay.
saying intimacy. The problem with married couples, yes, intimacy is an issue with married couples as well. You have married couples who really don't understand intimacy. They think that it's just sex. Like, I'm married now, we have sex. There is a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more layers to intimacy. You have to emotionally connect with someone. You have to spiritually connect with someone, no matter what your belief system is. And there's just a whole bunch of types of intimacy that people ignore. Like, you need to experience things with your partner to gain that oneness. So that's a big part of it. So couples who struggle with intimacy, what I work on when they come see me is, well, let's get you back connected. How can we get you back feeling like you are connected? Because when you lack intimacy, there's a disconnect.
Right. So another thing too, a part of intimacy that people don't think about in marriage is sometimes you can touch me without it leading to sex. Is there conversations that we have without it leading to my drawers or my feet being uncovered? What is the
Yo, this whole feet uncovered shit, like, don't say it no more. I shouldn't have said it. See, that's why I said I didn't want to talk about it.
And you know why it's an issue? Because she's gonna run it into the ground. That's why.
Yep.
She's gonna run it into the ground. I already know.
seriously? You can uncover my mind without uncovering my feet.
This
Like,
is true.
That's true.
True.
yeah, into me. See, I told y'all.
You know what? I will say the most intimate that I feel outside of sex with my husband is when we are having really in-depth conversations. Like, when we having those real philosophical, either religious or political, like, we don't always agree. So it get heated, but heat can lead to passion. But that doesn't mean you have to have sex. It just means you connecting with somebody. And you're talking to them about important matters.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we got another. Well, do y'all want to comment on Elijah's real quick before we move on to our first question?
Let's not skip him because I told him to support me tonight.
No, we're not going to skip him. What?
That's
He's
part of
important.
intimacy. Go ahead and support.
So
We love the husbands coming. We love that.
Our singles ministry is designed to help you navigate those waters. They are supposed to be, but they are severely lacking. They did Pew did a research panel on singles ministries and churches, and they are severely lacking because to tell somebody just wait for the right person or just do this or just be in the right place, that's not helping with my immediate needs. Like, I need you to tell me something that will help with my immediate needs. So whether that be build your community, like make yourself a village so that you can at least get parts of what you need from other people, because everything doesn't have to come from a partner. I think that's where people get confused too. A lot of our connection and that emotional intimacy comes from other relationships. So your tribe is important, but singles ministries don't really tap into what they need to tap into because a lot of people are afraid to just ask the flat out blatant questions. Like, I'm horny and what am I supposed to do? Like, nobody's going into a church and saying that when that's really what the issue is.
On base, the churches are very supportive, and they do a lot of singles retreats and stuff like that because they know that the singles are usually lacking, and those churches are different because there's not these strict laws around the religions because every religion is celebrated. So a lot of times they just have single ministries and people actually meet other people there. But that's a different sector.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm gonna move us along now. Do y'all know who this question is from? Y'all know who Tracy Dula is? Mm-hmm. That's my daddy, y'all. So he got a question for us.
Hey, Amber's daddy.
And just a shameless plug, y'all. My daddy's gonna be on the show for another conversation on gun violence. So make sure y'all tune in when we release that. We don't know when it's coming yet, but when we do,
you make sure your daddy bring his friends, okay? Bring his friends.
Like your friends to watch Daddy Amber.
So Daddy says, as a professional, how do you keep broad appeal to all races of people?
What does he mean by that?
I'm assuming. Yeah, I'm assuming how you, I guess, provide services to people of all races, all backgrounds, like being culturally competent or culturally responsive.
See, I took it as attracting all races of people. Like, you have websites and LinkedIn and all that. Like, how does your marketing attract all races of people? That's what I thought your dad meant.
Okay, Daddy, can you elaborate on what you're asking specifically for that
And is he
question?
talking about us individually as professionals or the clinical cookout?
Okay, I guess he's gonna elaborate. Daddy, let us know what you're asking. We'll move on until we get that clarification. So the next one, let's see what we have. Oh, this is another comment.
You have to also find churches that have the ministries that accommodate your age. Oh, yes, your age. Like young adults, you can attend a church where the youngest person walked with Dr. King, and you can attend a church where the youngest person walked with Dr. King and expect an updated answer. Yes, ma'am. You cannot. You cannot. And the interesting thing a pastor said once at a church that we attended, he said, if a church does not have young people and babies, it's a dead church. And I found that so interesting. He said, if a church is only full of old people, it's a dead church. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you have to have young people. You got to have people. You can't go to a church and everybody 50 plus, like, and you 25. It's not going
to Taretha said, until then, keep your socks on.
Yeah, she did.
Ooh, she went hate me out.
Maybe that's what that dude meant when he said he was going to knock my socks off.
Shut up.
Maybe there's a...
Is that where that came from? It could be.
It could have
Uncover the feet.
That man probably didn't know nothing about uncovering feet.
No, but it's a saying that probably came from that.
She said that was a dude on the street in New Orleans. I'm doubting that he knew.
He knew.
But I love my New Orleans people. But I doubt that he knew.
God.
He was in Shreveport, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure he. I mean, it could be. They listen to old folks. So I can answer the question the way I think your dad is asking it. It's easy to, I think, this is gonna sound arrogant, but I mean, I go with it. It's easy to keep a broad appeal to all races when you are Black and you're a clinician. And the reason why I think that is because I automatically assume that when I see a clinician of color, and it's probably not the best assumption that they are culturally competent, because every other race usually has experienced something traumatic that they can connect to other races with. And then also you get the European descent culture, and if they're culturally competent, also they also, like, look at Black clinicians. But I like to say that I work with everybody. I don't just say I only work with African Americans or I only work with this group, because then I think that you put yourself in a box. And when people see that you put yourself in a box, they don't want to deal with that, because if you're in a box on paper, then you're in a box up here. So I try to stay open to everything.
I would agree. Now, if you were to go look at my business Instagram page for my private practice, it is very inclusive. I'm very adamant about letting people know this is who I am, because I believe authenticity and transparency will pull in the clients that are meant to be with you. And I have a plethora of white clients, but they know who I am. They know who they're getting from jump. You are getting a Black womanist, pro-Black, LGBTQ allied woman for your therapist. So I pull in those people, those particularly my white clients, who understand that. So I think I do still have a broad appeal because I am inclusive to everybody, but I make it well known who I am. People know who I am as a therapist.
I think it's important, like Auntie Sugar and Auntie Ashley said, about having, I'm sure you do know, about having some sort of, maybe small paragraph or bio about what type of specialties you have and who you work with. We're all required as professionals to be culturally competent in different areas. However, sometimes people have specialties, and those specialties are listed so that way clients also have the right to pick who they want to pick. We don't, unless, I think according to our ethics, unless there are no professionals in the area that can treat this particular client, we do as best as we can and consult with individuals who have worked with these clients. So even if we don't appeal to them, let's just say a broad range of people, we at least have to, our ethical duty is to at least consult, or at least do the best we can as far as getting up on research or anything that has, you know, something to do pertaining to this individual's particular needs and culture.
Yeah. Amber, is the cricket in the house again?
No, you know the kids. Look, he's supposed to be watching the kids. That's the problem. But I agree. I want to piggyback off of what Keith says in terms of, you know, having a certain specialty. So, I mean, for me, yes, I don't advertise for any specific race of people or any specific type of client. But I do specialize with certain ages and certain backgrounds. So, for example, I know that I wouldn't even say specialize, but I know I work really well with teenage boys, teenage Black boys, and their experience. For whatever reason, when they come in my office, they want to just pour it all out to me. And I don't know what it is about me, but I work well with that particular population. So I wouldn't put it on my website and say, oh, I'm only working with Black teenage boys. But I do know that that's something that I work well with. So I could maybe, you know, let parents know that whenever they come into the office, parents of Black teenage boys.
We do see that. I do see people put out these websites like only want Black clients. And I mean, to each his own. So somebody has to help out the Black community. And somebody, you know, there's a lot of clinicians and other people over time who have only helped out their own community. Like you might get some Hispanics that say, you know what, our population is in need, and that's who I'm working for. I don't want to be one of those clinicians. I want to be a big advocate for the Black community, but I don't only want to advocate for the Black community because there's a lot more people out there that need it. So as an advocate, yes, but as that's the only group that I work with, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I tend to say when I got into this field, it was specifically for representation for us because I had heard so many Black people say, I'm not seeing a therapist. They don't look like me anyway. I'm not talking to a white therapist who won't understand me. So I got in it for the representation. So I have no issue saying that my priority will always be that representation in my people. But I want to help any and everybody. I would never turn somebody away. Yep. There are areas that I specialize in where I can help anybody. But my priority, my populations of choice, because we do get asked that, what are your populations of choice? And I always say the Black community or BIPOC communities, LGBTQ and military. And that's because those are three populations that are underserved, underrepresented, and near and dear to my heart.
Right. I mean, I believe it's the same thing when you ask, what do you want to work with, children or adults? And there are people who do not want to work with children at all. Yep.
You already know. No
so it's the same. To me, it sounds like the same thing. Like you don't want to work with adults. However, you're not going to go out there and be like, or children. You're not going to be like, no children at all. But if something comes up where you have to treat a child, I'm sure you will consult and, you know, do the best you can until that child is able to see the professional that they need to. But I think the other part of the question he had was, so how do you keep your job from being a Black only? Well, first of all, ethics, we have to follow ethics when it comes to our populations that we serve. So that's what kind of keeps us from saying like only Black people. No, we're expected to be competent in several areas. Now there may be, again, a pathway to have a specialty, but most likely our training and our education is pretty much a mix of working with different people and different ages across the lifespan. So our ethics and our education and training.
What'd you say, Shu?
I'm gonna go ahead and be 100% honest. Okay, and somebody could just go ahead and fight me afterwards. Our people are already skeptical of therapy. When you start getting some no-shows, you open it up.
You don't want to do that.
Trifling.
You trifling.
Why? Let me tell you, most of my no-shows, I've never had a no-show from one of my Black clients. Never once in the whole time I've been practicing. It's always other groups that have no-shows. But I did have some.
All the other groups are more represented.
I did have something that I think your dad might be interested in based off that last comment he did make about keeping our job from being Black only. I at one point thought that I would only end up working with women. I could not get a male client to save my life. And I kept saying it's because I put that I'm a Black woman as therapist, and that's scaring men away. I have male clients now though, which is great. And of course I see couples, but the way you word things will have you thinking, is this scaring people from coming to see me? Because I'll work with anybody. So I didn't change that though, because I'm like, look, the men who read it and decide that it's something about her that I still want to see about, they show up, they reach out. So
Well, I tried really hard. I started off working with kids, and in my practicum and internship, I tried really hard to open it up to work with adults too. I'm like, give me more adults, give me more therapy clients, more evaluations. And every place that I have been, they continue to give me kids, right? So at that point, it's like, okay, this is something that I'm good at. This, like, I'm not going to say I won't see adults, but like 99% of the people that I see are kids because I'm good at it. It's a specialty. It's something that I work well with. So of course I'm going to play upon that. If I can look at your kid and look at the whole entire picture, whereas you go to someone else and they look just at the symptoms, your kid is hyper, your kid don't listen, ADHD automatically. Why? Which would you choose?
Right.
So
yeah. I said I'd never work with kids either. I said I'd never do a lot of things. I'm working 0 to 6. Like what?
Lord.
Oh, hey, Elijah again. Look at him up in here. Go ahead. That's what I'm talking about. Support your woman. Support her.
Right, go ahead.
So he says perception is not reality. This is why that consult is important for clarity and transparency. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say perception is not their reality. It may be your reality, but like perception is a reality to that individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. The consult is important for clarity and transparency. Because our reality, we know about racism, systemic racism. Well, that's not the reality for white folks, but our perception of it is real.
That's why I think perception is reality.
Perception.
Yeah.
All right, we got another question here. Who wants to read?
Are there tools to help you find the best fit as a counselor beforehand, or is it trial and error? Some people never return based on a horrible experience. That's from Lamika.
My take is that this is an interview. So just like you ask questions at the end of an interview, you are allowed to ask your therapist questions. What type of treatment do you do? What type of populations do you see? Depending on what type of community or identity you have, how well do you work with this population? Can you see yourself working with this population? Just like how we ask you guys questions, you are absolutely able to ask your counselor, therapist, whoever questions as well. So, and sometimes it is trial and error as well, because sometimes you think that you are fitting with someone and something comes up, and your counselor or therapist should be able to have these open conversations with you. If they're not trying to have an open conversation about maybe where they messed up or maybe something that they said wasn't accurate, then maybe that is a time for you guys to part. But definitely trial and error, and definitely, at least in my opinion, you should be able to ask your counselor questions. So interviewing is good for me.
Lamika, go ahead, Amber, because mine gonna be long.
Okay, yeah, mine's quick. In terms of things that you can do beforehand or tools, a lot of therapists will offer you a consultation prior to your first session. Most of the time, I think it's like a 15-minute phone call or something like that. But even though you're not in person, you can kind of get a vibe from that person. So for example, I had a friend who I recommended a particular therapist to. I never met the therapist. I did my research online, and they reached out for the consultation. And when the therapist called them, he was like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I've just been so busy. I didn't have time to get back to you, but I'm getting back to you now. And that was that person's red flag. Like, oh, if you don't have time to get back to me now, how do I know you're going to have time for me when it's time to do therapy? So before even scheduling a first session, you can kind of identify some red flags with the therapist.
So I'm gonna tell you a little story, right? Recently, within this past 6 months, okay, the aunties already know because I had a rough day this day. Well, it wasn't too rough on me, but it was a little funny and rough. Okay, you know me, I laughed. But I got fired by a client because hear me out. This client told me that she had DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, and typically when somebody has that, they don't tell you. Um, Autism. She wanted me to throw the kitchen sink of diagnosis at her, and I see none of it. I was like, the problem was her. You know what I mean? The problem was that person where it was like you have some things that you can work on and that don't have to be covered under a diagnostic umbrella. So she fired me. She was like, listen, the next time she came back, I told you I had this and you said no, I didn't. I told you I had that. You said no, I didn't. I don't think I want to come back here. And as a counselor, I had to respect it and be like, okay, I guess I'm not your cup of tea. So if you're looking for something specific, then you look for that. When you go on the web, when you find out the name of a counselor, go on Psychology Today, go on Google. I Google the mess. I Google everybody. Go on Google and see if their values line up with what you're talking about. If you need a certain kind of counselor, like if you need a black counselor, if you need somebody who's well versed in trauma or rape, you know what I mean? A lot of times on Psychology Today, they have a whole profile that you can read and decide now. And I mean, a lot of counselors are comfortable with you looking at them and saying, it's okay because like she said, it's a relationship, and you ain't gonna want to be in a relationship with everybody you in there with.
Yep.
It's true.
And here's a question that's semi-related to that. Lamika's asking, should we pay attention to how experienced the counselor is or certain certifications based on our issues?
I would say the certifications, if it's something very specific that you are needing, yes. For example, if you are specifically needing somebody who is LGBTQ allied or somebody who works with trans people, because that's different. Or if you're talking about somebody who is versed in EMDR, which is a type of intervention, you want somebody that's certified. You want somebody that's certified in EMDR. You want somebody that's certified in certain things. But if you are just coming to therapy because you're dealing with anxiety or depression, or you need some couples counseling, you can go to what has been called a generalist, which is a therapist who doesn't really specialize in a niche, but we have the background to work with anybody basically. The experience part, if I said yes to that, then I probably wouldn't have a lot of clients because I'm probably the youngest therapist as far as how long I've been in the field on right now. So we have to get the experience somehow, and some of us are naturally good in the field. That it's still about finding the fit. Can you work well with an intern or somebody that's fresh in the field? Absolutely.
And I'm gonna say, don't sleep on students. I'm gonna
Right.
just say that
Working on
because
students.
I've had so many clients when they first hear that I'm a student, they're like, "No, I want a licensed professional. Like that's what I want." Well, that person's not available. We end up working together, and now you all in love. Oh, I don't want you to leave. Da, 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 da. But what happened? What happened to me being a student and you wanted a license? But honestly, don't sleep on students. In terms of experience, a lot of the times, even though they're new to the field and like being a therapist, there is some kind of background in the mental health field prior to that. So if you ask the right questions, you'll get the right answers. If you ask how long have you been a therapist and they say 6 months, that doesn't answer the question of how long have you been working in the mental health field? How long have you been working with children? How long have you been working with adults with anxiety? You might get answers like 7 years,
Right.
10 years, right? So you got to ask the right questions too.
And let me just say too, with students, if you are new to trying therapy, Auntie should be my therapist. Listen, if you are new to therapy, it's your first time ever seeking out therapy, a student financially is a good option
That's
because
true too.
I had way cheaper rates as a student because they can't charge a lot for you to
And
see
they're
a student.
hungry. Yeah.
And students are hungry. They want to work with you. They want to get the experience. So if you can go see a student for $30 a session, you're not going to get that once they licensed. You're just probably not. So
Yep.
find you a student if it's your first time. It might be a good idea.
So
You're
I'm
welcome,
glad
Lamika.
that this blesses you, Lamika. Thank you. I do want to point out also sometimes those certifications are just up there, right? Sometimes people could take those certifications online real quick and they're like, bet I'm a certified trauma specialist. So EMDR is very specific. That's for people with PTSD. That's where veterans might go. You're not going to find a lot of people that say, I'm EMDR certified that are not.
Mhm.
So it depends on what you're looking for
Right.
and is how much experience you want. But typically, if somebody is a therapist, they done went through some training and they ready. So
Mhm.
if you go to them and you don't like them, I mean, it's not a one size fits all. Try somebody else.
Yeah.
Yep. And we got a comment here from my hubby right there, Auntie
Oh,
Emery.
look at another
Yes, I do, boo.
hubby.
Yes, I do.
Another
All right.
hubby.
Let's move on to our next question here.
Well, hold
My
on, hold
husband.
on. So let me tell y'all one quick. Geronda is my really, really good friend. I laugh because my friends
Just,
swear up and down I'll be their therapist. Okay.
you probably
Yo,
do. You be mine.
I was just about to say something that you ain't supposed to be up here saying, talk about I'm your therapist. I
Mine
swear I
too.
be trying to talk to people. So you might find somebody with that natural niche and that keep good secrets. Because once you tell me something, it's in the vault, okay? Unless it's detrimental to somebody's health. But it's in the vault. So even having friends, that could be a form of therapy too. That's what she's getting at.
Auntie
Mhm.
Sugar was mine too. She one of the few people that hold me accountable and don't care how I feel about it. So,
She the
And
realest. She the
Yep.
realest.
She
it's
be
for sure.
checking all of us.
yep.
All
And
right.
get
All right.
crazy.
Um, next question.
My husband has always agreed to counseling if it was a couple counseling us to gain insight from both sides. Do you all agree? Ooh, I'm the one who
Couple
works with
counseling you?
couples.
If it
Like,
was a
Do they
couple
do that?
counseling,
They have
yes,
I
that?
didn't know they did that.
yes, but it is rare, which is why I was just about to say you might not find that easily. That is very rare to find a husband and wife or a couple who work together in a counseling group that work with couples as a couple. That's
that
difficult.
sounds like religion.
That it can it happens a lot in churches. You have a pastor and a first lady who will counsel couples together. But in the field of mental health, that is very hard to find. I know like two I can name offhand who do it
That
as a couple.
also that makes me think about the movies where people be pretending to be power couples and stuff to like get book deals. I can't remember what movie. It's like a Lifetime movie I'm thinking of. But like that sounds like something people would do. Is be like, "Oh yeah, we're married. We've been married for this long," and like
It's not it's
not.
rare, but it is possible. If you have a husband and a wife who are both therapists, they can decide to go into it together when specifically working with couples. Do I agree with that? No, because now you have four people in a session, and that's doing a lot. You have you have four people, two professionals and this couple in a session, and that can be really difficult to maneuver. So one as a couple, you really only need to see one therapist. You really do.
Yeah, because I was going to say, what are they going to do about confidentiality? Like, how does that work?
I mean,
Well,
you
she just said religion, so that clarified a lot because
Mhm.
if you're talking about licensed professional counselors or if you're talking about a licensed profession, I would agree with Auntie Ash when she says that it's it's not something that I would do because, like you said, number one, you have confidentiality. Number two, you have two separate individual therapists. A lot of times when I have a couple, um, one of them sometimes is more sick than the other one, and so I might say, you know what? And I don't mean sick in the head or anything like that. I mean one of them is needs more support than somebody else. That's clarification for
Mhm.
anybody try to come for me. Um, so I usually refer one of the couples to somebody else. Maybe you need some individual therapy on your own because sometimes you could see that one person in the marriage might bring a lot more baggage or might bring a lot more of their trauma to the marriage. And
Whew.
it's difficult when you have two people looking at that because you might have a man, you might have a woman or whoever. And, there's always going to be, oh, I see it from this perspective or I see it from that perspective. But in counseling, you want to be blank slates. So you can have one blank slate up there to hold everybody accountable. I hold my clients 100% accountable. And I don't care if it's a man, woman, I don't care who it is. I get to holding people accountable.
And
Mhm.
me personally, I'm very adamant when I work with couples. I tell them first session out the gate, if you ever feel like I'm being biased, you call me out. Yes, I'm your therapist, but you have the right to call me out if you feel like I'm leaning to his side or her side or his and his, her and her, whoever, because I am supposed to be unbiased. I'm not here to take sides. The couple A good couples therapist is going to tell you the couple is the client, not you as an individual. As a couple, you are my client. And I'll tell all my couples if they need individual therapy, which most of them do, I'm like, y'all both need to go to individual. Y'all can do individual and see me. So one person is enough. And then her other comment, see, life coaches, you can find it. Life coaches, you can find it.
That's different.
When you have
Yeah.
a married pair that call themselves life coaches and they're certified, that's different. And they can do that, but that's not, I don't want to know.
Psychotherapy. It's not therapy.
Okay.
This
Life
is
coaches
therapy.
live by a different set of principles
Yeah.
than therapists, than counselors or psychologists. This life coach is a certification and counseling is a licensed profession.
Exactly.
And I mean, you can find some really good life coaches, just like you can find some really good counselors.
Mhm.
But I would probably steer away from them and maybe just go find a certified mental health counselor. Not life coaches, but the people that are best friends and they're so-called life coaches. Steer clear
And
of
I
them.
would say if you do want to see a spiritual based counselor, we have those. We have Christian licensed counselors who specialize in spiritual counseling, Christian counseling for couples.
Auntie Ashley, that's what you did.
Yes, I did have my bachelor's in Christian counseling. But even if you go to your, now this is where I'll say going to your pastor and his wife can work. There are pastors who are also licensed professionals or also certified in certain things. Now, if you got a pastor that's certified in certain things, mental health wise, feel free. That's a totally different ballgame. But if you just have a pastor that's like, I'm everybody's counselor because I'm the pastor, no.
So the reason why I did say that that's what Auntie Ashley does is because it's important to know that people shun religious counselors, but she's also a mental health counselor. So having that backing and having the mental health background makes her more versatile. Don't shy away from that because you don't got to please everybody. Okay.
Listen,
Double down.
I tell people, well, I don't tell people unless they bring it up, but religion doesn't come up in my sessions unless my client brings it up. Once they bring it up, then okay, we on go. But I've worked with clients on deconstructing Christianity. I've worked with clients of different religious beliefs. I've worked with clients on finding their spiritual path. And if it's not Christianity, that's fine because I actually study religion a lot too. So I know a lot about different religions. So don't be afraid to go to somebody who is spiritual based, if that's what you need.
That's what I mean. Don't listen. Don't be ashamed. Call it out.
All right, this is a good one because this was hard in the beginning. But what do you do to keep from being attached to clients? Meaning, how do you keep from taking your job home?
Amber, daddy, this is why I don't work with kids.
That's my daddy.
This is why I don't work with kids because I knew I would get too emotionally attached.
Listen, one of y'all go ahead.
I think it's a struggle because while we are professionals, we are still human. So there's this human side of us that we still have. And there's just certain clients that we will always, I'm pretty sure everybody here has a client that they can remember will always hold a special place in their hearts for them. So typically, let's just say supervisors typically tell us about self-care, engaging in those things, and also just being aware of like sometimes if we hear like traumatic things, because I'm a trauma person that works with children, so I may hear about a child like being sexually abused, and I have to see this child, and I have to worry about if this child is safe. So there are moments where there's going to be something or someone that you're going to take home. So I think the best you can do is, at least the generic answer is self-care. But I'm sure the other aunties got other things to offer. But that's typically what we're told in supervision, self-care.
I ain't gonna lie, I'm too busy to be taking people home. It's a lot of people in this home. A lot of people in this home for me to be bringing extra strays in. So what I do is when I leave, I'm done. Like, and now I do get crisis calls. I had 3 crisis calls this weekend. 3.
Wow.
Minding my own business, and I had 3 crisis calls. So I do get crisis calls, but what I do is when I get home, I unpack the day with my husband. And even if he look like he don't want to listen, I make him listen. Or I just talk on the phone on the way home. A lot of times I call my best friend. She just listens to everything and she thinks everything is so interesting. So I unpack it and then I leave that baggage outside because when I get in the house, I feel like I have to switch modes. So my supervisor in England taught me, Rashonda, when you come in here, get out of mommy mode. So like I had to put on different hats, if you will. Like I had to say, okay, now I'm in therapy. Okay, now I'm at home. Now I'm in mommy mode. And so I started thinking about it like if I continuously bring this stuff home, I'm not present for them. So ideally, when I get to the door and I take off my stuff, it's kind of like everything I do is symbolic. It's kind of like, okay, let me leave all of this here. And if it's something that I need to unpack, oh, somebody gonna have to listen before I let it go for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Auntie Suge just basically described compartmentalizing. We compartmentalize. And sometimes it's hard to do. Like Auntie Key said, I have clients who are near and dear to my heart. I have had clients who I worried about a lot, especially when they were in crisis, particularly when you deal with suicidal clients. So we're human. So we feel emotions, we feel things. And I often get upset when I hear other therapists or in the field, we learn that we shouldn't be emotional with clients. We should be a complete blank slate, poker face. I'm like, nah, that's not how you build connection and rapport with people. I've cried in session with clients before, and there's nothing wrong with that. Not every therapist is going to do that, but I don't hold back from that because I feel like it draws a deeper connection. But I do try to compartmentalize. Once I'm off work, I'm off work. If I get a crisis call, I handle it, but I try to break it up. And we learn about boundaries. We keep boundaries.
I have
Try.
very strict boundaries. And
Yeah.
you know what? You know what happened with me with boundaries today? Sometimes I have very strict boundaries, but they bend, right? So sometimes I'll say, gosh, I feel so sorry for this client. Let me open up my Wednesday at 4. I've stopped doing that because when I do that, I realize I'm taking away from my home. So if I'm gonna be there for you and I'm there all day and you got all day to call, and then you like, well, I'll get off work at this time or I'll get off work at that time. I kind of make them fit into my schedule because I have to be able to just like you say, compartmentalize, unpack my stuff. And if I'm not mentally fit, I'm not gonna be able to help anybody. So today I was going to say, all right, put them in my Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And I said, nope, tell me another day you can come. And all of a sudden, magically, they have another day that they can come.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mhm.
I don't want to take my kid out of school. Well, I don't want to stay at work late. So all of a sudden they come up with a day. Oh, I can't come that day. So I started learning that too. The
Yeah.
girl who
Yeah.
said, I can't do telehealth ever. You have to be there for me at this time. Okay, well, let me refer you to psychology today. I like you as a client. I think we work well together. But if there's somebody else who can be helpful and work within your schedule, then that might be best for you. And
Yeah.
people do what they want to do.
True.
I wanted to add
I,
one more thing. Oh, go ahead, Amber.
Good.
It was just about unpacking, like Shook said, we have to do those things because sometimes we have things called transference and counter transference, and if we hold on to things, sometimes it will interfere with the session. So
Mhm.
it's important for us to continue to like go to consultation or supervision so we can unpack some of those things, because even if we have a client where something is going on and we don't unpack that, the next client can have something going on similar, and then we bring in what the past client was going through into that new session. So it's important for us to just be aware of that and unpack, like Auntie Shug said.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's all of it is really hard to navigate. I could say that. There's a whole lot of thinking that we have to do, and but for as far as like I had a really hard time with the attachment thing earlier in my career, because I did work with a lot of kids, a lot of teenagers, runaways, homeless kids, like that. I would worry about this kid all night long. Like, did they run away again? Like, are they safe? Or a kid that had ran away, like, are they okay? Like, I don't know what's going on. But I think, like Auntie Shug was saying, I it was like a cognitive thing for me, like changing the way that I was thinking about things. For one, I'm not responsible for this kid and their well-being. My role, what is my role here? As a case manager, my role was to connect them to services to get them the help that they need, meaning they had a team of people and it wasn't all on me. So if something happened to that kid, it wasn't all on me. And even now, as a psychologist, as a therapist, I have to think about that too. What's my role here? I'm not responsible for everything that this person does.
Mhm.
So whenever they leave my office, I've done everything that I needed to do. If they're having suicidal thoughts, I've done my risk assessment. I've made the calls that I needed to make. I either let them leave because I felt they were safe or I didn't. And that was my clinical judgment based on my training. So if something were to happen, it's not all on me. Like there are other factors that are involved in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that helped me a lot, thinking about it in that way instead of like, I have to make sure every single person on my caseload goes home and they're happy and they're fine and nothing happens to them. Because if it does, it's my fault. Like, no, that's not how it works.
You know what happened? What you're saying, Auntie Amber, is that worrying. I did a lot of that in addiction, and I had somebody call me at 2:00 in the morning, and then I was like, let me get my boundaries together. So,
while you're talking about that, there's a question here from Venetia too. Speaking of crisis calls, does that mean that you're always on duty?
Nope. It is in my paperwork that I am not a 24-hour emergency clinician. I put the emergency phone numbers in there. Now, I do tell my clients, you can message me and I may respond. But if I do not, you have to have support people or you have to call these emergency numbers. I take down in my intake my client support person. Like, who are your support people that you will list here in case of an emergency? So these are the people you reach out to. Now, I've had clients text me. My clients are well aware. If you text me Friday after 6, you may not get a response until Monday, unless I want to respond, because the weekends are mine. So we are not 24-hour emergency clinicians. That's not our role. We have set hours just like anybody else.
And that was a big thing that I learned in supervision too. Prior to even going for my doctorate, was business hours are business hours. Like my supervisor realized that I was like responding to emails late at night because somebody would email me like, so and so ran away, I don't know what we're gonna do. And I'm like, contact these people. She's like, stop doing that. We are 8 to 5. After 5 p.m., they know where to go. You've told them who to call. You've told them where to go. So
you gotta turn into big red. My office hours are from.
It's done. I'm sorry. Can't do nothing. I won't even look at the email.
After 6:00, when them accounting hours say we're done, you won't be calling them. But so what my office does is we have a crisis line. So the crisis number answers after we get off at 5:00, and we deal with a lot of medication. So it's a lot of stuff that only we can talk about. So what happened with me over the weekend with the 3 crisis calls is, well, one of them was about medication, definitely. But if you get a call saying, I'm having a problem or I can't get so-and-so's medication, these people feel like they're in crisis, right? So they'll go through the crisis hotline. And if it's something that the crisis hotline can't handle, then they'll call us. A lot of times my supervisor will handle it. Other times he'll be like, listen, this one is for you. But no, it doesn't mean that that I'm on duty all the time. But as their therapist, I don't give out my phone number. Don't text me. Don't call me on my phone number. So no. And then the reason why I don't get into the texts and the phone calls and the emails is because, say like you get a patient who says, you know what, you don't call me by 3:00, I'm gonna go ahead and end it all. What does that look like in court? My supervisor got me real paranoid, and it didn't take much because I'm already there. But he's like, what does that look like in court? You know what I mean? So you have to start thinking of not only the client, but you have to start thinking about you too, because you don't want to be liable. And you know how lawyers twist things, and they call up your records and everything like that. You don't want to be liable for anybody but you. So I don't do the texts and the phone calls. If you need me and it's that urgent, call the crisis line. And a lot of times people realize it wasn't that damn urgent, and they called and they was like, all right, I'll see you on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm. Something I live by, something my first supervisor told me was, the goal of a good therapist is to eventually work themselves out of a job. Meaning I have helped you to the point where you can manage life without me, without having to see me. Now you might need maintenance. I'm big on mental health maintenance. If you decide to, in therapy because you feel like you're in a good space, well, in 6 months, you might need to come back for something because life happens. But at some point, you should be able to fly the coop and kind of manage life. So a good therapist is working to work themselves out of a job.
Mm-hmm. And then we have Latour. Sorry if I said that wrong. Is that right?
It's Latour.
Latour, okay. I think this was in response to Ashley saying that sometimes she might cry with her clients in session. It's okay to empathize and sympathize with your clients or patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you don't want to overdo it.
Right.
So you don't want to just be crying every time they cry, because
Right.
then they're like, how stable are you to be helping me
Yeah,
with what I'm dealing with?
that's true.
Yeah.
Or-
I wanted to cry in here. I didn't want to see you do this. Now
Right.
you
Yeah.
and your snotting too.
And
Two
we
things
both
that
cry together.
you try to stay away from with showing that type of emotion. You don't want to center yourself as the therapist, because it's not about you. It's about the client. And then two, sometimes if you cry with certain clients, then they become afraid to tell you things because they like, well, can they handle it? Because they crying. We have to kind of gauge, when is it appropriate? When, like, you gauge it, especially once you know a client, you like, okay, this client needs me to come over and hold their hand or cry with them. They need that. So you gauge that based off the client too. I'm not gonna cry with every client.
I don't even touch people unless
I was about to say, I don't know about the holding the hand thing.
Touch comes
I'm
up
with
in
you on that,
school.
Shug.
Touch came up in school for us, and it just depends again on the client. I've had a client who asked, my supervisor was like, if a client asks you, or if you ask them and they say okay, then fine. She said this is the type of relationship where you're building that connection, so it's fine. I had a client before I left my group practice. Before I left the group practice, he knew I was leaving, and he was like, can I just give you, he's like, I don't know if it's okay, but can I just give you a hug because I won't get to see you? And I was like, absolutely. It's like, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't
Well,
bother me.
that's okay.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I guess because I work with kids, I do have to be very careful, because you're in an office with a child alone.
Yes.
And little boy, little girl, whatever it is, I just have to be really careful about any type of touch. And if they want a hug, they will hug me in front of their parent. But we're not, like, I have to set that boundary in the office. We can play together, we can share toys, but the touching thing, I have to be real careful about that.
I only work with adults that of consenting age, so
that's different.
all I gotta do is make it sense.
I work with the littles, so they are very quick to touch you, very quick to try to hold your hand, very quick in doing those things. So yeah, it's definitely a balance when it's under a certain age.
Yeah, and with adults too, like some adults will, I have one who asks for a hug every time the session is. Like, she just needs a hug every time the session is, and if she asks me for it, then I'm like, okay, but I don't, showing emotion is okay, but putting my hands on people, I typically don't do unless I have boundaries, and I try to respect their boundaries around that. Like, we ain't in here to touch each other. We're in here to talk and do all that. So if they need a hug, like I've had a patient, I've had patients that have some serious grief stuff, then okay. Or I have patients who are elderly and they need to be helped up, then okay. But I try to, that's client led for me, I would say.
Yeah.
Well, it's something I ain't got to worry about no more. I'm strictly telehealth. I do not see clients in person anymore.
You don't be in there blowing kisses.
No, can we talk about telehealth versus in person though? Because I know it's a preference, but I really can't get with the telehealth.
I love it.
I love it.
I love it. I love
Really?
it.
My private practice is all telehealth as well.
Same. Yep.
I love in person so much better. I don't know why. I can't do, unless I have some clients that I've seen in person for over a year, and now we're virtual. That's different because we have that relationship. But just like a new client, I have a really hard time with that. But also it's kids, so they don't be paying attention online. They're just like
kids. I would rather see in person. But adults, now that I know I don't have to drive an hour anywhere, you ain't gonna catch me on the road going nowhere.
Listen, telehealth is where it's at for me. My clients love it. And I had people who were like, I don't know if I like telehealth. You can't build the same connection. Yes, you can. And I started with telehealth, like an internship, because of COVID. I didn't have a choice. I didn't meet my first in-person client till a year and a half after I started seeing clients.
Yeah.
It was awkward to go from telehealth only to seeing people in person. I was like, oh, this is different seeing them in person. But I actually prefer telehealth.
We were the opposite in our thing. We went getting clients, and then we had to go to telehealth because of COVID. So once that happened, I was like, I wasn't comfortable with telehealth. I was like, man, I don't want to do that. Yeah. But then once I didn't have to drive and waste gas, I was like, oh no, I'm
Venetia said she wasn't comfortable with telehealth. First of all,
she said she need to lay on the couch.
Listen, lay on your couch while you on telehealth. I have clients do it all the time. I'm like, lay down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people don't like telehealth, but you can always find somebody who's close to you too, like within the vicinity of driving different distance. Now, I do counseling telehealth. Like I see my therapist through telehealth while I'm talking about I don't like it. I enjoy not being in somebody's face while I'm getting counseling, so I do telehealth, but I don't enjoy doing it via telehealth,
Mhm.
like administering the counseling. So that's weird, but
And
it's
here's
personal preference.
Yeah, and here's the big thing too with telehealth and the benefits of it. For some people, especially people in our community, in the Black community, if you live in a certain area and you say, I only want to see a Black therapist, you might not have a choice but to do telehealth because it might not be a Black therapist anywhere within a driving distance of you.
I'm sorry, but Venetia's stupid. She said, "Yeah, if I was laying down, it might have helped." Right? I was staring intently at the computer, like,
Oh
"Hey,
no, no,
how you
no.
doing? I'm good."
Listen, I tell my clients to lay down. I done had clients, and you got therapists who do not like this. I am not big on telling adults what to do in their house while they are talking to me. I've had them laying in their bed, on the couch. They eat. I had a client go out and have a cigarette on his balcony. I was like, "Go ahead." He's like, "Can I have a cigarette?" I was like, "Go ahead." Listen,
This
do
session is just
you
loosey goosey.
because my thing is, the more comfortable you are, the more comfortable I make you, the more you are going to open up and be comfortable with me and talk. Like you gotta let people breathe. So go and lay on your couch, honey. I have people lay on the couch anyway, especially when I do mindfulness work with them. I'm like, lay down so we can do this guided meditation. All right.
What
Any more
y'all about to
questions?
do?
No, no, like, did nobody ask no question? It's like this is perfect time, an
So we
hour in.
good.
Yeah.
All right.
Anybody got any last minute anything before we hang up on y'all?
I don't think so. I did. There's a comment I didn't put up here about showing emotions.
When they aren't around,
Tori.
if that's how you feel
That's
about it.
that's a good point too. So what Tori is talking about is sometimes therapists get triggered. I was so triggered today. I'm just gonna go ahead. Listen, y'all can be my therapy session. Where Jerron at? Because that's my therapist. um I was triggered today with two of my patients because they have the same grief that I have. And just sitting there being triggered is difficult when you actually want to feel the same emotions that they're feeling, or you know that you felt the same emotions that they felt before. So immediately when I left work today, I have the worst therapist. His name is Abraham. I called him and he was my therapist. Now I'm gonna start calling Geronda. She said we're dope. Listen, you
Because she
sometimes you
here with
gotta
no
leave.
license.
But
She got you.
she here with no license, she got me. Sometimes you got to get those emotions out, and in order to be able to show up the next day, because letting them sit up there and fester with you is going to cause counter transference.
Yes, yeah. Oh, it's been a few sessions where I have broke down crying. I'm like, I gotta get myself together before this next session. But I had to. Like, crying is therapeutic. Please cry. I always tell people it's cleansing to cry. Don't hold that in. But I have boo-hoo after certain sessions. And then I pull it together and compartmentalize. And I'm like, hello, how are you? For the next session. So you gotta do it sometimes.
So, and my therapist recommended, instead of I do a ritual after people leave to kind of cleanse the area and cleanse the room. She recommended, if you look at your schedule, because me sometimes I fly by the seat of my pants. Look at your schedule before, and if you see those triggering clients, do your ritual before they come in, so that way you're already mentally prepared. So I know we do have to go, but I just wanted to leave everybody with that one.
Oh, child. Gotta
Well,
save.
actually, I'm gonna leave everybody with Mika here because she says she's so late. But we always know you're gonna be here, so we ain't
Yeah,
even worried about it. We
better
ain't
late
even
than
worried.
never.
All right, ladies.
All
Good
right,
night.
Love
y'all.
y'all.
Y'all have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Wait, when is our next live? Y'all tell everybody now.
Next
You
live
gonna
is
make me look up the date?
December. Hold up. I know it. I know it.
We will
Good
be
call,
having another
Chip.
live.
Good call.
Yes,
Is it
because some
December
people
14th
got a
or
little
the 21st?
confused. Some people got a little confused with us saying that we're going to be on a break. We are on a break, but we are still doing our lives, and we are still doing our mini Mondays. So like Psycho Ed with Auntie Shug, TikTok Quiche, you know what I mean, the intimacy interlude. We're still doing those things. So just be looking for those things to come out in the
Oh,
meantime.
there's my uncle.
There's
Hi,
who?
Uncle Ivory.
Hey, Uncle Ivory.
Where? Oh, who's
The
this?
G and L William.
Oh,
Oh, that's who that is.
It is.
Oh, he be on here faithfully too. I
Yep,
love
we
it.
watch
I
it.
love
we
it.
pay attention to our faithful viewers. We know who y'all are. Trust me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But no, so we will
Yeah.
still be out here. Just keep on looking for us, and then in the new year we hitting y'all with some good content. And another thing too, make sure y'all send in questions for our live. Because today we asked a question that somebody sent in last month. We love that. So make sure y'all send in questions for our live, and get on our YouTube, and we have our episodes also.
Yeah.
So
And we gonna probably throw out some hot sauces too. I think Auntie Amber got some hot sauces
Yep.
together for the break. So it's a break from the regular episodes on Friday, but you are still gonna get content, and we'll still have our live. I think
Yeah.
the December live is on the 14th. Is it the 14th or the 20th? It's the 14th, right?
It's 21st.
The
21st. 21st.
Yeah.
December 21st is our next live. So throw us your questions, like Auntie Shug said. You can give them to us now, DM us, and we will have them ready to go for the next live.
Also,
All
happy
right.
Thanksgiving, y'all. Happy
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 Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving. Yes.
Happy
Oh shoot.
Thanksgiving.
You said happy
Woo-hoo.
Thanksgiving before I don't want to dampen the mood, but I did not want to end our live tonight without acknowledging tragedies that happened this past week. The young lady who was killed in Cabo, Mexico on vacation. I want to, send prayers out to her family and comfort the 3 football players in Virginia. I want to send prayers out to their families, and also the 4 students in Idaho. It's been a lot of loss. So a lot of grief. We had a grief episode if y'all want to watch. Shameless plug. But yeah, just recognize how fragile life is, and pray for these people. Send good vibes to these families. They need the comfort right now.
Yeah, and hug your loved ones a little bit tighter around this Thanksgiving. And watch our last week's episode talking about families around the holidays. So we'll see y'all.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.